Greetings, and welcome all to episode number 6 of the Creative Outlet Podcast, otherwise known as the COP. Today's date is Saturday, September 5th, 2020. Fine fall day where we are getting back into some normal everyday routines, including for me, I'm getting back into schoolwork. So, full disclosure for the audience, hopefully we don't have a situation like episode 4 again, where this takes forever to come out, but we'll just have to see what happens here. I'm going to try to get it going pretty soon, or get the editing done on this pretty soon here. As you can imagine, if you watched it and realize what I'm wearing, I am recording this immediately after recording the intro to the Creative Outlet Bonus Part 1, which you should, of course, check out. Anyway, so we're in episode 6, and as always, one of the ways that I like to start my intros is reflecting on some of the topics from the prior episode, which, numerically, as you can imagine, is episode number 5. So let's talk about some of the things that happened. Let's talk about a certain word, right? Right? Okay, so when I was listening to the edit of episode 5, there was a certain pattern that I noticed quite a bit that I'm hoping I correct in this episode. I cannot say for sure that it will certainly not happen, but I swear to great good googly moogly, every sentence I said seemed to end with comma, right, question mark, and, you know, I wish I knew what happened there, to be honest. That was kind of weird. It was definitely a bit strange, because I feel like that isn't something that I do super often, but I can't pretend like that is not a part of my normal speech and vernacular and the like. But suffice to say, we probably will not be having that happen so much, because even I can say from my own editing, that was annoying to listen to over and over and over. And it makes me sound as if I'm not very confident in my claims, which is very bad for when you're trying to make arguments and claims. That's your debate tip of the day. Talking about other things that happened in that episode. So you may remember at the very start of it, we talked about good old COVID-19, which of course is still going on in this great year of 2020. And I gave some best practices that we should be doing at the time. But one thing that I noted in the text that I feel is very good for me to also say, just so it's out there, is though I do stand by the best practices that I gave in that introduction, I just once more want to point out, I am not a doctor. I cannot, necessarily give you medical advice because I simply do not have that expertise. So, of course, you should always make sure to consult your doctor, be it just a simple family practice or any sort of specialists who are important to you that can give you, some recommendations on what you should do with your health. But regardless, I do stand by those best practices outlined in there regardless. I want to talk a little bit more from last time on the status of college, because one of the topics in that episode was should we as students be returning. So of course I have many updates here on the University of Wisconsin, because like I said, that's my home state's main college system, and that's primarily what I wanted to focus on, because again, it's important to me. But here I have a little bit about the University of North Carolina to start with, specifically the Chapel Hill campus. I found that basically it was open and closed. Shocker. So as of August 25th, which is a little bit Obviously this is a bit of older news. There were 11 clusters of cases of COVID-19 on campus between on-campus housing and off-campus housing. So I hate to say it, but that's a really big piece of evidence just reaffirming my worry about all of these students returning to college. Because that was about, if I remember correctly, there were 4 already within the first week. 4 of these clusters, not 4 cases, 4 clusters of cases between on-campus and off-campus housing. And already seeing that jump up not too much later to 11 clusters of cases is pretty freaky. So I really hope that everything goes well for the students at the University of North Carolina. If they're sick, I hope they get better. Sounds like my understanding was basically after that first week, the campus decided, well, guess we're gonna have to go back all online. Again, I hope students' mental health in that situation is very sufficient, that it's that they're making sure to take care of themselves, that professors aren't being too terribly hard on students right now, and most importantly, that ultimately they aren't the ones being blamed here. We're going to talk about that a little itty bit here when we talk about the UW system, but I really don't want the students to be blamed. I mean, as much as obviously those who were being irresponsible should have had the agency to not do the things that they weren't supposed to do. Ultimately, the people at the top could have made sure to prevent these things that happened in the first place. So, when it comes to the UW system, I have a couple of updates, and these are, again, primarily coming from the flagship University of Wisconsin-Madison campus. These are articles from outlets in the area. So there's one article here from Channel 3000 that I want to talking about where UW doctors say the ball is in students, like in the students' court, to act responsibly, because, as you can imagine, people between the ages of 18 and 24 that don't have a completely developed prefrontal cortex are not always the best at making rational decisions. And I just want to point out, these doctors have their premise totally backwards. Now, sure, I accept the fact that obviously, as employees of a campus, they're not going to be like, yeah, our leaders kind of made like the stupidest decision possible. I get that, right? They have to defend their employer ultimately. But saying that the ball is in the student's court is fundamentally wrong. Why? Because those people at the top could have said, no, we're going to take that opportunity they could have away from them in the first place. They're the ones who really have the power. Because again, I don't remember if I said this in the last episode, but if I did, it's worth reiterating. The choice to go back to campus was a false choice. If you had or have an in-person class on campus, you had to go. Short of being able to figure out a way to switch it out or just get rid of it, or, of course, if you had multiple in-person classes, there was no way you were not going to be on campus. That wasn't really your choice in the end, because you have to be there for those classes, especially if it's one that you have to have because it's a general education requirement, or it is specifically for your degree and you need it, or you won't be able to get your degree. You just have to be there, and that's unfortunate. But, you were put in that place not entirely of your own volition. It's because these people wanted to send you there. Similarly, the UW system president, who is former Wisconsin Governor Tommy Thompson, who is apparently the governor during the George W. Bush years, noted that he has a threshold in mind for, quote, when to shut down campuses. Not if he has to shut down campuses, but when campuses need to shut down. Why am I putting so much emphasis on that word? Because it shows that this individual who has the most power in this situation, because he's the president of every campus, from the little itty bitty community colleges all the way up to this flagship campus in the capital of the state, knows that the campuses will close. He knows that it's going to happen. He has a plan for, well, here's how bad it needs to get before I'm going to say it has to happen. So why bother sending the student back in the first place, Tommy? Can you give me a good reason? Similarly, recently there were some people in power in the city council, I believe. Let me just make sure I have the article here. It's some Madison elected officials, and I'm pretty confident it's the city council, but I just, I have to... it's members of the Dane County Board, as well as half of the Madison City Council, and even some of the school board members as well, all spoke up. And this is on, when did this article from Madison.com for the Wisconsin State Journal come out? August 25th as well. We're basically telling the campus, hey, you should not be sending students back. You have a weak enforcement plan, which is also something that I talked about in that segment. And there's inevitably going to be an outbreak on campus that is going to potentially lead to more spread of COVID-19 in our city, which we represent, and we don't want that to happen. And look, I'm glad that these elected officials were speaking up about this, but I have one question. Where on earth were you back in May? Because this is an issue that I, as a student, was thinking about back in May. I'm sure there were thousands of other students also thinking about this same issue back in May. At the very least, they were thinking about it in June or July when it's like, oh man, it's almost school time. Right? I'm sorry if I'm like peaking the audio here, but as you can imagine, that's pretty upsetting to me, where it's like, well, I'm glad you were thinking about this, but you should have thought about this earlier. Because I'm sorry, but this is the 25th? It was 8 days until the semester started, because in the state of Wisconsin, school's not allowed to start until September 1st at the earliest, legally, by state law. Sometimes they push it, like if, this 1st of September was like a Friday or a Thursday, and then students immediately have Labor Day off because it's a federal holiday. They'll just push it to the first day of the week after Labor Day. But I digress from that point. The point is, this should have been an issue way, way before August 25th. And sure, maybe that's when the article just happened to come out and they were talking about it a little bit earlier. But still, the bigger picture point is that this should have been done at the very least a month before. Now, one point that's also made in this article that I think is very important, which is that the main reason that the university pointed to for continuing in-person instruction, even if it is for it's about 40% of classes, is because there's, quote, overwhelming feedback from students on their preference for in-person instruction as part of the reason for, as like their main motivator to open campus. But here's the issue with that claim that they're making. There was no campus-wide survey of students. How on earth can you make the claim that, quote, there is overwhelming feedback from students preferring in-person instruction in the fall when there was no student body survey? Either you're just lying, or you're kind of just basing this information on like murmurings around the community of like, well, I heard, like, in this class, a bunch of students are like, gosh, golly gee, I wish we could make sure we have in-person instruction in the fall. That is still not the same as a student body survey. I also want to point out that students, as it says here in this article, were forced to complete basically a training exercise on COVID-19 best practices, and many of the ones that I talked about were included in this. Is my understanding. The givens: social distance, wear a mask, tell people if you don't want to gather, hey, I don't think I want to go to that thing because that sounds unsafe. That sort of stuff. And they have to, at the end of it, sign, it says in the article here, I just saw it, where is it? The Badger Pledge, which basically says, hey, I'm going to make sure to always wear a mask and socially distance. And if, I'm like a student in power, like an RA or a student employee, I'm going to make sure that everybody's wearing a mask. Let me remind you from last time that I mentioned, this is a place that in housing takes pride in the fact that only 25% of all first-year students in housing drink illegally. Okay? You really, honest to goodness, think that this pledge is gonna stop kids from gathering? And to put the cherry on top, this is a bit of information that came out, it was either today or yesterday. As of the first week of classes on campus at this flagship campus, 9 of the approximately 60 fraternities and sororities have already had to be quarantined. So that's it's give or take 1/6, which is about, let's see, what is 1/6? I should just know this off the top of my head. I know 1/8 is like 0.12%. This is 17% of fraternities and sororities already quarantined on campus. That is insane. In 1 week. And granted, again, keep in mind, let's just be fair. Let's say that these kids all moved in August 30th, about exactly a week ago. Maybe even some of them were earlier, around like August 27th, 28th, right? We've been there a little more than a week. And 17% of fraternities and sororities already need to be quarantined. I don't want to critique this campus and these people because I hate them or because they're wrong or, I'm not patriotic for my state or whatever, but we gotta be real here. 17% of fraternities and sororities in a week? Claiming that there's overwhelming desire to have in-person classes when no student body survey was conducted? Looking even like at UNC, Chapel Hill, there were 11 clusters of COVID-19 cases on campus. There is no way that any semester, almost anywhere, is going to be successful, at least in places with dormitory housing. So, I hate to start on this somewhat dour note in the introduction here, but like I said, we have to be realistic. We have to make sure that people are safe. So, I hope I do not, in every episode, have to continue giving updates on this. I probably will, because I figure this is a good running topic to have, since there's going to be constant updates just coming out, even just in the basic news cycle. I'm just sad about the whole situation, because I and many others would like to get back to campus and get studying and having in-person classes, because I can tell you from experience, and I can tell you from the fact that I did not have episode 4 edited until basically the middle of June, that online asynchronous classes are miserable. So, with that all stated, we're going to be having 4 topics as usual in this podcast. And today's topics are going to be as follows. We're going to be talking about is there a Nintendo Direct drought? We're going to be giving a review to one game that I am quite a fan of. Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, released in June. I thought it would be good to give a sort of summer nostalgia-y topic. And while it could be super easy to do, like, did you do things on the beach? I really didn't. I was never really a kid that went to the beach super duper often. But something that I've done a handful of times in my life was go to some smaller amusement parks. There's going to be an amusement park experiences segment, and one thing that I really enjoyed talking about in the intro last time that I'm somewhat expanding a little bit more into a bigger topic here is talking about more retail snafus. So those are going to be our topics today. Let's get ready to hit the ground running on them. Alright, so the last full-length Nintendo Direct was actually just a little over a year ago, on September 4th, 2019. Like I noted in the intro, today is September 5th, 2019. And since this last event, if you go around like any social media platform, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, YouTube comments, etc., whenever there's any Nintendo trailer or anything of the like, there seems to be this general feeling among fans that there is a drought, so to speak. Now, obviously, this term is in reference to a real-world drought where, communities will run out of water, and they're, like, begging for, like, any water they can get, and it's super deadly and sad, and, it's a bad comparison to make in general. In this case, gamers are more or less begging and pleading and hoping for a big, full Nintendo Direct, because there hasn't been a full-length one since September 4th, 2019. Now notice, I put a special emphasis on the point that it is a full-length Direct, because basically what I want to do here today is refute this case being made that there's a drought, and it's like, come on, Nintendo, we gotta have a Direct. I need it so badly, right? And I want to give my impressions on this idea here. Now, at the same time, there's another piece that I think will hopefully shine a pretty heavy light on why people are so antsy about having a full-length Nintendo Direct. And it's actually because of, something that recently happened. I cannot believe that I was writing this on, it was like the 2nd, and that was Wednesday. No, it was, I was writing this on the 1st, on Tuesday. What am I saying? And then I was thinking about this. This year, I think the main reason why people are so antsy is because it is the Super Mario 35th anniversary. And ever since the year started, there's been all kinds of speculation about there's going to be some type of Super Mario All-Stars 2. So for those of you who don't know, Super Mario All-Stars is an SNES game that remade all 4 of the original NES Mario titles. Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2, Super Mario Brothers 3, and then it was the game that brought Super Mario Brothers The Lost Levels to the West for the first time. So basically, this Mario All-Stars 2 that's been speculated about since like January was supposed to be a compilation of all of the 3D Mario games that led up to Super Mario Odyssey. So we're talking about Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Galaxy 2, and Super Mario 3D Land. Now you may notice Super Mario 3D World is not included in that list. And that's because it was supposedly supposed to have the deluxe treatment, not too dissimilarly from the recently announced Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and another example would be like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Now, there were some claims along the way that this All-Stars 2, it could have been like a collection of basic ports, kind of like the Kirby 25th Anniversary Collection on the Wii. But others said it was like, the games are going to be fully remade from the ground up. So as you can imagine, Mario fans, including myself, could get pretty hyped about this, even if it's just an idea, right? Now, admittedly, I was not super hyped about it necessarily because I only really get hyped when there's actual definite, hey, this is happening. I can show you this thing, and it's real. But that's just me. People get hyped based on ideas, apparently. Now, I would say this is not the only game that was causing people to be direct beggars, but I would argue that it was the biggest culprit of it. And wouldn't you know it, like I just said, I wrote and planned this whole topic, and then that direct comes out. Ugh. Okay, so we're gonna bonus talk about the Super Mario 35th Anniversary Direct, but I still want to address this topic because regardless of that, I still think this is important. Why do I not believe there's a Nintendo Direct drought? Well, that's because since the last full Direct, there have been a ton of other Directs, either about specific games. Heck, I covered one on this show, the Animal Crossing New Horizons Direct. There were presentations about games, also known as the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate presentations, two of which I covered, the Byleth and Min Min presentations. I believe since that Direct, immediately following it was the Banjo presentation, and then not too long after was the Terry presentation. So that's 4 more presentations given by Nintendo since that full Direct. And then there were mini Directs as well. Let's see. I wrote down everything on here. I just discussed the 4 Smash Bros. Ultimate DLC presentations, and the 2 I covered. In January 2020, there was also a Pokemon Direct, and that announced a remake of the first Pokemon Mystery Dungeon and the DLC content how redundant, the downloadable content for Pokemon Sword and Shield. I just talked about how in February there was the Animal Crossing New Horizons Direct, and since then there was a Nintendo Direct Mini in March. I didn't cover this. We're going to be talking about one of the games from it. And I would actually argue, well, it isn't even fair to call it a mini Direct because it was 25 minutes when the last full Direct was really about only 15 minutes longer. And that Direct showed off a whole bunch of things. There was Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. There were a bunch of ports coming from 2K. There's a little more information given out about the New Horizons updates. There's a Ring Fit Adventure update announced. That Direct revealed Good Job, which is another independent game that Nintendo published. It was shown that, Smash Brothers' next fighter would be from ARMS, before Min Min was announced. We heard about some Japanese games like Trials of Mana and Ninjala. And then there was a highlight for me, which we're going to be covering a little bit later, the announcement of Clubhouse Games' 51 Worldwide Classics. Now, am I going to come out here and say that to most people, these reveals are like, whoa, mind-blowing, amazing, I just had to sit through that? No. But that is not the claim being made. The issue is whether or not there is a drought, that there's just been no information announced. In late July and similarly in late August, Nintendo has published direct mini partner showcases, which are both presentations discussing exclusively new third-party games coming in the next few months to Switch. There was also some updates, including one to Cadence of Hyrule, which while it's like this weird second-party sort of thing. So that's still a Nintendo game, I want to point out, though. I thought the second partner showcase of the two was a lot better than the first, if only because it included Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, which is awesome. But suffice to say, people were left pretty flat from these in general. And that gets me into my thoughts on this situation. The problem people have here is not that they feel that there's a drought of directs. Because if there had been nothing announced since the last full direct a year ago, maybe I could agree with that premise. Maybe I could. But there have been at least 6 presentations given since then. I think it actually, well, let's see, there's the 4 Smash Brothers ones, the 2 mini directs, and the 2 partner directs, and now I guess the new Super Mario 35th direct. So that's 9 different presentations since that last full direct. If I had to take a guess, and I pointed that out before, the issue really is that there has not been anything until Super Mario 35th Direct, I guess, that was super amazingly earth-shattering announced. Now, Nintendo fans get like super duper duper hyped about Nintendo Directs because something amazing always seems to be announced. At least that's a perception. It's not true in practice. I can tell you there are plenty of times where there are full-length directs and people still come out of it flat. I mean, I could say so for myself. Like, I remember one of the later directs in 2017, I wish I knew the exact one. Like, there was a whole bunch of time dedicated to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's a great game. I just don't care. That would be a direct that probably fell pretty flat for me since it spent so much time on Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And, you know, for some reason, despite that, fans just seem to think that's like, there's no such thing as a bad direct, and I have to have one. Maybe that's a little... Okay, maybe that is a little bit of an extreme statement. I guess I shouldn't necessarily say that. But that's still the perception I have. And, you know, I totally understand why people want to hear more about Metroid Prime 4 and the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And if you want my honest opinion, before it was, you know, now revealed, I had basically zero confidence that Super Mario All-Stars 2 would happen. But alas, I guess I should discuss what happened in that direct. So let's get the big thing out of the way. Indeed, not Super Mario All-Stars 2, but rather Super Mario 3D All-Stars is real. And I think it's pretty interesting. Full disclosure, I do already have it pre-ordered, despite, you know, all of that disdain. You have to realize I am still a Mario nut. If the picture there, and I don't know how well you can see the amiibo display in the back right now, but I quite enjoy Mario. Yeah, in Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country are my first 2 games. I figure those are plenty of clues to note that I would probably order that right away. Now, where the reality diverges from the leaks is that the collection only includes Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. Why is Galaxy 2 not in there? I know that I'm not the first person to say it, but that is a glaring omission. Now, I'm also sad to see that Super Mario 3D Land is also missing, but I figure most people don't care. Especially because this is a $60 collection. And they probably should have at least included one more game, probably Galaxy 2. I'll still, you know, be happy with my purchase. But I do have to note, that the reaction now to this collection, since people know what it actually is much more mixed than the theory of, oh my goodness, it's going to be a 3D All-Stars 2, especially because of, a little bit more information that I'm going to talk about here about these versions of the game. I wish they would have actually included Super Mario 64 DS, because it's obviously the superior version of Super Mario 64, and I do wish that there were more enhancements to the games. I like that Sunshine and Galaxy now have full HD and widescreen support, and they figured out how to do the pointer for Galaxy and the like. And while 64 is still in 4:3, it's in HD. But my main concern is that the games are basically just ports. That they're not actual remakes, which is what the original Super Mario All-Stars were. Graphical, for sure, remakes, but they had some gameplay tweaks made as well. So the way that this is being done makes me think that none of the salient gameplay issues in each game is going to be touched, which, again, is just another reason why I wish 64 DS were included as opposed to the original Super Mario 64. Side note, this is going to be the first copy of the original N64 version of Super Mario 64 that I'll own, so I'm not even coming into this necessarily thinking, like having played both and thinking that, well, 64 is so much worse. I'm actually coming at this just looking at it and saying, well, I've played 64 DS, and regardless of the fact that it is the only one I've played, obviously having 4 characters and 30 more stars and a better presentation is way, 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 way more beneficial than, is way, to me, those are just better selling points, I guess is what I'll say. So that's exciting. I want to make sure, do I point this out later on first? Because there is one other pretty important issue. No, I don't point it out, so let me talk about it here. For some reason, this collection, so it goes on sale on September 18th, but it's only available until the end of March of 2021, both physically and my understanding is digitally as well. I'm not sure why. That's a very confusing move, and ultimately it's going to lead to a lot of piracy, because people are just going to try to download the ROM for Super Mario 3D All-Stars once they can't easily buy it anymore. Nintendo, why? Just keep selling it. It's free money. But I digress. Similarly, the original SNES Super Mario All-Stars is now available via SNES Online. My first copy was the Wii version that celebrated Mario's 25th anniversary. But, I've played some of the 16-bit Super Mario Brothers just because it's there. Super Mario 3D World is indeed making a comeback to Switch in the form of Super Mario 3D World Plus Bowser's Fury. We don't know much about this expansion. The trailer shows a new dark and stormy, very sprawling landscape, which is not how most levels were in Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U. So I'm assuming that that's part of the Bowser's Fury portion of the game. And on the one hand, this is another Wii U port, which, trust me, is going to be its own segment later on, not today, but some other time. But unlike a bunch of other ones, this might actually be one I pick up, shockingly, because the game description on the eShop notes that this game is playable online. Now, I want to make sure that I see this in action first, though, because before I decide $60 is put down in this game, because not even because of the quality of the online play, but just to make sure that they are actually saying we are going to have a 4-player online 3D Mario game. And not just the same sort of integration with the online. Because you have to remember, the Wii U version had online play too, but it was just Miiverse posts and having me fairy ghosts in the levels that would show you how that person played with their character. And like I said, I don't even care if the gameplay experience is as bad or worse than in Super Mario Maker 2, because to me, being able to play through Super Mario 3D World with 3 strangers online is a significant amount or is a significant enough difference to warrant double dipping to me. And one other element that was not included in the direct, but was revealed, I believe, in a tweet, was 2 new amiibo figures, Cat Mario and Cat Peach. We don't know what they're going to be used for. And, I mean, regardless of whether I get Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, I'm going to make sure to get the figures. Just because, especially because I am way behind on many of the Super Mario ones, and they're stupid expensive now. And I don't want to have that happen to Cat Mario and Cat Peach as well to me. The next announcement seemed to shockingly be a bunch of people's highlight of the Direct, which was Super Mario Bros. 35, which is like if you put together Super Mario Bros. And Tetris 99 or any other battle royale, where the premise is basically that you and 34 other players are running through Super Mario Bros. On the NES until one player is alive at the end. And as you're playing, if you defeat any enemies, so you jump on a Goomba, you kick away a Koopa Troopa, you fireball, Spiny, whatever, those defeated enemies are sent to other players, and you can spend coins on like random power-ups. Maybe it's a mushroom, maybe it's a fire flower, maybe it'll be an invincibility star. And I think it'll probably be pretty fun. I enjoy Tetris 99 to an extent. I feel like this is going to be more fun because I enjoy Mario more than I enjoy Tetris in general. But I'll wait to give my actual thoughts on the game when it comes out on October 1st. And again, like Super Mario 3D All-Stars, this game will not be playable post March 2021. This is also a Nintendo Switch Online exclusive. So if you're not a Switch Online member, I mean, it makes sense that it would have to be a Switch Online exclusive because you have to play it online. You're not going to be able to play the game ever. And that is very sad and terrible for preservation. Because, I mean, this could be very fun. I'm thinking it's going to be very fun, but I don't want to make any rash claims yet, especially not knowing how the online experience will be. But I figure I'll enjoy it. But it has to be playable past March. I mean, come on, Nintendo, really? Really? Why? There's not even really a good reason stated for this or for Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Let's talk a little Mario Kart. So there were 2 Mario Kart announcements made in the Direct. The first was the little announcement that on Mario Kart Tour, that's the mobile game, there's going to be a new event celebrating Super Mario Kart on the SNES, including a 16-bit Mario character, and the return of Donkey Kong Jr., also in 16-bit form as a character. But the big announcement, and one that I'm like tepidly excited for, was Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, which to me is the equivalent of a Mario Kart Nintendo Labo kit. So for $100, consumers can purchase an RC car of Mario or Luigi that connects to the Switch and is then controlled by it. And the car has a camera facing the front out of the back to show the real world on your console. And basically what the trailer shows is that, and it's not super clear, once you read it, it makes a little bit more sense. You have to place 4 little gates on the ground in your house, and then you connect the console and the car, and you'll have Lakitu, that's the guy in the cloud, he usually does the 3, 2, 1, go, paints the tires. And so then the player drives their toy Mario RC or Luigi RC around, and that designs the track. With the only limit, of course, being that you have to go through the 4 gates. I'm sure there's more limits, we just don't know what they are yet. And then the player is able to race a bunch of CPU, only like Koopalings and Bowser Jr. for some reason, and another player, though, if someone else has the other character car in their home. So you could have Mario and Luigi and all of the CPUs. And while I think this is a great idea, I'm going to use a little wishful thinking here and wait for a price drop or sale on this game. It's neat. I think it'll be fun. I don't have enough hard floor available to me. And like I've pointed out, and like how a bunch of other have pointed out as well, I'm not sure how much of a lifespan this game has because it seems too simple. It's not like Mario Kart 8, where you have tracks made for you, and you can play online in those tracks, and you can play single player, and you can play time trials and Grand Prix. This is like one time I made this track, and now I can't play it again. And putting down $100 for that is probably too much for how little it could be used. And it's the same sort of reason why I've only ever bought Labo kits when they've been on sale. Now, the last major aspect that I want to talk about that I'm also definitely pre-ordering is the Super Mario Brothers Game & Watch. I have always wanted a Game & Watch, but they're like $100 to $200, which is way too expensive for that teeny tiny of a game. And technically this isn't a Game & Watch in the vein of a standard Game & Watch because it's not, an LCD game where it goes like deep, 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 something like that. It's still at least like a kitschy little handheld, and it includes, of course, Super Mario Brothers on the NES, Super Mario Brothers The Lost Levels on the NES. It includes a new Mario version of Game & Watch Ball, and it has a clock with a bunch of different animations, I believe. 35 animations. And that's pretty neat. I'm not sure how much it's going to be. It's coming out in November. And I actually want to point out, I feel like there's a lot of missed potential with this Game & Watch as well, because there already was a Game & Watch Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, there's already a Game & Watch from the 80s of the same name, and that game isn't included in Game & Watch Super Mario Brothers. I mean, sure, that's probably a bit of a, a deep cut for most of the people who are going to buy this, but I just think it would have been neat if you're including, if it's a Game & Watch of Super Mario Brothers, include Game & Watch Super Mario Brothers. And funnily enough, the final Game & Watch is actually called Mario the Juggler, which is basically just Game & Watch Ball, but it's Mario. And I'm kind of surprised that Nintendo didn't just recycle that and made a brand new Mario sort of thing for Ball. But regardless, the product as it stands is pretty cool and rad, and I am excited for sure. There are also a bunch of just little announcements in the Direct, like some merchandise that I don't really care about. Mario shoes. Mario Monopoly. Whoop-de-doo. There were a few exciting things, though, yet that were tiny to mention. The Switch eShop has a little Mario makeover right now, and the 64 Mario runs during loading screens, and there's a red tinge, and it's nice to see the Switch eShop finally getting a little personality when it's had none, not even any music. A few more games are going to have some Mario tie-ins. There's going to be a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Tournament themed around Mario. There are going to be furniture items for Animal Crossing New Horizons in 2021 themed around Mario. There's going to be a Super Mario Maker 2 Ninja speedrun course. And to me, the biggest new Mario tie-in, if only because it shows that Pearl and Marina lied to us, is a brand new Splatoon 2 Splatfest complete with t-shirts for purchase leading up to it based on, are you Team Invincibility Superstar or Team Grow Big from a Mushroom? Haha! So, that was the Super Mario 35th Direct. I feel like there is a lot less begging going on right now because of it, which frankly, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, and I'm sure people are going to think of me as a hypocrite, really disappoints me. Why? Because this is not what people asked for. You cannot say now that, oh, it's fine, because what you've been saying is that there has been no Direct, implying that there's been no full-length Direct, and for whatever reason, the presentations prior to this were not sufficient announcements. Like I said in the start, there could have been nothing at all. There could have been nothing at all. And this And what we had along the way was still something. And granted, I would say out of all of the presentations so far, the Mario 35th one was probably the best. But it still doesn't meet people's criteria. And that's just frustrating. Final thoughts, though. Life goes on. Look, I don't want to see a full-length Nintendo Direct being announced as much as all of these people who have been begging for it along the way. But there's so many other things right now that I care about. Just see every single podcast so far, and you'll listen to a whole bunch of things that I care about that we're not. I want a full-length Nintendo Direct. I could go on years right now, to be honest, not having a full-length one. And I mean, yeah, that's assuming that announcements still keep coming out along the way. Whether it's, hey, suddenly Paper Mario the Origami King's a thing. Cool. Here's a 25-minute little video about stuff. Here's a little 8-minute piece about a bunch of third-party games. That's fine. That's fine. Speaking of a 25-minute mini Nintendo Direct, we should talk about one of the games that was announced in that one in March, because next up is the review of Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. So I've thought pretty long so far already about what my game of the year is going to be for 2020. It's not that I haven't played fewer games this year, but there just haven't been a lot of traditional game releases, you could say. There's still 3 more months till the end of the year, so something absolutely amazing, mind-blowing could still come out. But I'm not really holding my breath on that. I just want to take a quick rundown of the games that I've purchased physically this year to talk about who's in the running. Digital download games are, of course, always in the running for Game of the Year, but it does tend to be a physical game that is the winner, so I just want to go through the list that I have here. Okay, got my props. We have Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, Tokyo 2020. New Super Lucky's Tale, the limited run physical copy of 2064 Read-Only Memories. Let's see, we have Animal Crossing New Horizons, Blossom Tales, The Sleeping King, also a physical limited run release. The game we're talking about today, Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition, also known as, I swear, the longest English title of all time. And finally, the recently purchased Paper Mario the Origami King, and like I mentioned in the last segment, I will also be receiving sooner than later Super Mario 3D All-Stars. I can't imagine that a collection is going to be my game of the year, but we'll see. And like I said, there's plenty of digital games that I've purchased. Like I recently got The Stretchers, which is also an independent game published by Nintendo, and Sega Ages Puzzle and Action Ichidant R, which I've quite enjoyed for what it is, I want to point out. And then there's a couple more games that I've planned to get, like Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. Probably not going to be the game of the year, if only because it seems like it's going to be very similar to the original Puyo Puyo Tetris, which was a fantastic game in its own right, but also was not my 2017 game of the year when it had to compete with Super Mario Odyssey. I've also recently pre-ordered Untitled Goose Game from Skybound Games, so that will be in the running as well. At the end of the year, I plan to discuss what my game of the year is going to be, because everybody does. And I'm also going to talk about, well, Brandon, why are you including games from, like, past years that aren't 2020 in that segment? Because to me, there's always a personal game of the year alongside the game of the year 2020 in this case. But the sad thing about this year is, to this point, the game of the year might end up being Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. Now, don't get me wrong. I really like this game. In fact, let's put it like this. I put more hours into Clubhouse games in 2 months than I put into New Horizons or Animal Crossing New Horizons in 6 months. I mean, I would imagine that I'm a very small minority thinking that it could be deserving Game of the Year crown and like having played it that much, but I'm just saying I liked it a lot. But let's give an objective-ish review here. Like the last time, I want to give this game review using certain metrics, the same ones that I used for New Horizons. How is the game's premise? How does the presentation hold up? What is the gameplay like? And then finally, what sorts of things would I add, change, or get rid of? Let's start with the premise this time. And like I said with New Horizons, every game has a story, but like with it, I think Clubhouse Games is better represented by the idea of a premise because it's what's getting you to play into the game. There isn't necessarily a story that you're following along. In this case, Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics has somewhat of a story in the background because each of the 51 games and the piano toy have a cutscene that plays out with a little toy figurine family playing the game or giving a brief tutorial if it's a complicated sort of game. So it's like the players are living among this family and seeing their love of card games, board games, fun stuff like slot cars, golf, pool, aka billiards. But regardless, the basic premise is simply that. You are playing tabletop games, toys, sports with a CPU friend or friends, or with your real world family. Now, when it comes to the presentation, Clubhouse Games is really pretty. It is gorgeous. I cannot tell you the frame rate or the resolution because they're not exactly aspects that I've seen discussed anywhere. If I knew, I would tell you, but I just don't. But suffice it to say, the 51 games have amazing detail, and they run smoothly, at least in my experience in single player. Like when I look at the Yacht Dice board, or even just any of the card game tables, I can feel the texture of the felt just from seeing it. There's like marbles used in Nine Men's Morris, and they give off this amazing celestial glow. You can see the wood underneath. It looks like it was cut from... Okay, well, I was going to say it looks like it was cut from a real tree, but I don't know if the game quite looks that good. But suffice it to say, the visuals are superb. And what's neat, too, is that the developers made sure to include like little background objects so that you're reminded, hey, this is still like a real house you're playing in. So like there's a coffee cup around the Battle Tanks arena and the Team Tanks one as well, I'm fairly confident. And then you can just barely see your opponent's, like the chair that your opponent would be sitting in toy tennis. Where I've encountered some frame rate stutters, though, and where the presentation obviously kind of falters, is in playing online. It isn't obviously as big of a problem with something where you're playing in turns, like in Last Card, or Ludo, or Chinese checkers, but as you can imagine, playing golf and billiards are much harder when I have to catch up to where I'm tilting the stick. Like I'm planning it that the stick, or the indicator, is moving as I'm tilting the stick, and instead it's like it moves way over here, and now I'm like, wait, I have to correct it, and it's just a pain. Goodness, let's see. I need to get up a list of all 51 games, because I just kind of want to do a lightning round review of each game included, not including the piano. I don't know how to play the piano, so I could never, ever give a fair review of that. Here's a list of all 51 games. I believe these are in the same order as they're shown in the game. I'm just reading them right off of the website. There is Mancala, which is a new game for me. I'd never really, truly, seriously played it until I played Clubhouse Games. I really like it. There's like some strategy, kind of not some strategy. It feels like it's a very one-sided game, but I enjoy it. Dots and Boxes, the classic pen and paper game. CPU's too hard on that thing, I swear, because, either you tie or you get lucky and win if you win at all. Yacht Dice is Yahtzee, or at least the equivalent. Yahtzee is obviously the branded Hasbro version of the game. It's fine. I'm not a big fan of the game. Oh, excuse me. Why am I putting my hand over my mouth? I'm not a massive fan of Yacht Dice, if only because I hate randomness like that. But it's okay. 4 in a row. Again, it's Connect 4. Coming back to that game as an adult, there's a shocking level of strategy in 4 in a row. Like, there's a shocking amount of, I have to make sure I put these pieces in the right spots that you just don't get when you're a kid. Hit and Blow, I hear, is similar to this game Mastermind. I'd never played it until this. I think it's okay, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to get how I'm supposed to get the pattern when there's multiple of the same color. 9 Men's Morris is dumb because either you, like, it seems like you're almost, it's, well, I was gonna say you either win or you lose, but that's every game. It's so ridiculously easy to lose, though, I find, because the whole idea is supposed to be like you go back and forth between groups of 3, and or you just happen to like block spots, but then you can't make lines of 3 and take your opponent's marbles, and I don't like it. Hex plain doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know if I just can't map out the line properly in my head to build a line, but also block my opponent from building a line. It's okay. It's definitely not the first game I would play. Checkers. It's a perennial game. I like it over chess because I don't get chess. Hare and Hounds is pretty dumb because the hounds can only move forward, so the hare almost always has a guaranteed advantage and almost always wins. Gomaku, I actually quite enjoy Gomaku. It's like Connect 4, but you get a whole grid board available to you, and you have to line up 5. But there's so many times where it's just like you can't see a move coming, and it's a game that I have to get better at strategically. Dominoes, I like Classic. Don't care for 5 Up. Those are the 2 modes included. I don't really understand 5 Up. It's like you have to like end. The end pieces have to add up to a multiple of 5, so you get 5 points, but you have to get either 61 or 31 points. It's weird. Whereas Classic is simply whoever gets rid of their dominoes wins points based on how many dots were left on the remaining player's dominoes. Chinese Checkers is neat. It's one of the only 3-player games in Clubhouse. It's also a game that I had never really played until I picked up this collection. I enjoy it. I don't think it's a game I would really like as a board game because I can't, I like having the like reticle to show, hey, you can jump all the way out here by jumping over all of these, which I wouldn't see if I were playing a board game because I'm bad at visualization, I guess. Ludo is sorry, but better. I hate the board game Sorry with a passion because it's so random. Whereas Ludo, I mean, sure, in Ludo you have to roll a die and you have to get a 6 to move a pawn out of the home. But I don't know. I just like it better, although it takes forever. Backgammon is neat. I'm bad at it online. But when you're playing against the CPU, I just think it's fun, especially when I like trying to send my opponent back to the start. I don't know if I have very good strategy at it or not, but it's just fun. Renegade is Othello. And this is pointed out on the Completely Unnecessary podcast. It is so hard to make an actually good Othello CPU. And when I say that, I don't mean a CPU that is good at the game. I mean one that can give a reasonable challenge. Because apparently either it plays totally randomly if it's supposed to be easy, or it's a master at the game. And I love and hate Renegade because of that. Chess, I have not played chess. I have not played shogi. I have not played mini shogi. I have not played Hanafuda. I have not played Riichi Mahjong. I won't give reviews on those because they're just too complicated games, and I'm sorry that I've never played chess or Mahjong or Hanafuda. Last card is Uno. Basically, It's good. I feel like it's probably the game that I would start the most on here if I were to boot the game up. Um, but it comes with all of the trappings that Uno has, and that there's a lot of randomness in that. Oh, come on, I just need that one color. Or, you play the number I needed, and now I can change everything on you. In that sense, it's not super fair, but it's fun. Blackjack, one of the few four-player one console games. It's fine, but blackjack is all random, and you have to hope that you're betting well. Texas Hold'em, I'm not a serious gambler by any means, so I can't really tell you how well it compares to something like a TV poker game, like a TV show series poker, like my dad watches or something, turned into a video game. But it's fine. I don't play it very often. President is low key one of the highlights of this game. I really want to play it in real life, but I never have like four people around to play it, and they'd probably think it's dumb. Um, I wish I could figure out how to explain the game other than just I think it's fun, but I recommend that you go download the Clubhouse Games Guest Pass because that is one of the free 4 games included in it. Sevens is also fun. Basically, you have to get all of the cards out in numeric order in a row on it, starting with, because seven's the middle card of the deck out of the 13. And it's, the thing I like about it is I'm kind of evil in that I will pass until I absolutely cannot pass any longer because you get a limited number of passes in sevens, just so I can hopefully get the other players to have to bust and lay out all of their cards, and then I can win. Speed is speed. You know, you get 3 cards. There's 2 piles in the middle, and you have to deal out yours quicker. So if there's a 6 out on one of the piles in the middle, and you have a 7, you have to get that out before your opponent puts out their 7 or their 5 or their joker or whatever. Matching is matching. You can't really screw that up. It's fine. War is dumb because it's all random and you have to hope you get a higher card. Takoyaki, even though it is also all random, I think is pretty fun. Basically, you have to get 1 through 10, and you start with a deck in the middle, and you keep drawing cards, and whoever gets all 10 first wins, including jokers are useful, which adds at least a little bit of strategy to the game, because you have to... I can't think of the word. You kind of have to watch and make sure, okay, are like all of the 2's gone? I better put that in my 2 spot, for example. Pig's Tail is also kind of neat, but I feel like it's kind of marred by the fact that one player is almost inevitably going to get screwed at the end, because basically you have to take the cards are laid out in a curl, and you have to lay them out, and if 2 of the same suit are drawn, you have to take all the middle, and you have to hope that, I mean, you can take your cards that you've had, like, if you had to take the cards from the middle and are starting and are continuing, you can use the ones that you've pulled and get rid of them, and whoever has the least cards at the end wins. Golf is golf. I like that it's the NES holes. I wish it was more than 3 clubs, so I could have a little bit more control over what happens, but it's fine. Billiards is also a highlight. I like all 3 variations of the game. Honestly, just even simple, get all the balls in the hole, get 5 before your opponent does is really fun. Bowling, I'm a bowler in real life, fun fact. The ball is a lot more accurate to real life in this game. Pins, for some reason, are super hard to get accurate. But it's fun, it's bowling. I wish it was 4 players, though. Darts, I've not really... I think I've played it once, and I played it in touchscreen, and that was okay. Carom is another low-key highlight. I'd never played it before. Basically, you have to get all of your colored discs into all the pockets and get the queen, and make sure that you get the queen in before you get all of your color coins. And when you do that, and you get all your coins in, you win. Toy tennis is like tennis, but super limited, and in that sense, it's okay, but it's just a toy and not very sufficient. Let's see, what else? There's just a few more games on here. Let's see, the next one should be Toy soccer, that's foosball, but like kind of limited. Um, it's okay. It reminds me a lot of the toy soccer in Wii Party, which makes sense because this game was developed by ND Cube, which also made Wii Party, or excuse me, Wii Party U on the Wii U. Again, it's okay. I'm not a big soccer person, but it's also it's not a game I would pick first. Toy curling is kind of neat. I wish it was more like actual curling and that you had like little tiny people with the little broom, but instead you just kind of shoot out the curling stones like pucks, and it's neat. Toy boxing is just Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but even simpler in that you punch or you block. I'm pretty sure this is also a mini game in Wii Party U on the gamepad, but I could be wrong. I mean, it's fine. It may as well be sumo wrestling, but it's fine. Toy baseball is neat, but I don't know. It seems like the AI is very strong in that game, and it's hard to get past the third level of CPU. Um, Air hockey's neat. It's air hockey. I wish you could. I wish there were pointer controls for it, not unlike the minigame in Wii Play with the laser hockey. Slot cars is cool. I especially enjoyed the mosaic mode version of it, where you get to like design your own track. I wish I had 4 switches around to try it with, but it's still fun. I haven't played fishing. Are there any more on here I haven't played? No, I don't think so. Battle Tanks is okay. I would imagine it's more fun with an actual human being. Um, but it's fine. You get a couple different arenas to beat up each other on. Definitely not as good as Wii Tanks, where you get to point at each other with the pointer and use a stick on Wii Play. Team Tanks is a lot lamer, because again, it's similar to Wii Play Tanks in that you're going up against CPU tanks in a few stages, but there's a whole 3 stages as opposed to the Wii Plays 100. Shooting Gallery is a shooting gallery. I like the stages. It's fine. It's fun. I have found that with the pointer version with the Joy-Con, the pointer gets way off very easily, though, and that's something that needs improving. 6-ball puzzle is also okay. It's apparently the same as a Mario Party 9 minigame. My guess is they just wanted to include it to get another game in there. Again, it's fine, but I can't. Kind of like Puyo Puyo, I can't see that far ahead when I'm stacking things. Sliding puzzle, I hate. I have not gotten to the rabbit version of the stage. I can't. I have a hard time envisioning things. Mahjong Solitaire is just Windows Mahjong, which I hate to say it, but I'm that low-key casual guy who much prefers Mahjong Solitaire. Klondike Solitaire is solitaire, again, like Windows Solitaire. It's pretty neat. It's fun, but again, those are all just basic games. Spider Solitaire is fun. I just like one suit personally. Again, I just like it making it easy on myself because it's fun just to win. Don't hate. And I don't know how to play the piano, but I'm sure it's a totally fine tool. That's all of the games. I don't know if those are great reviews, but I didn't want to take 30 minutes to review every single individual little game in detail. So let's hopefully close this off here with what would I add, change, or get rid of with this game, because I feel it is important to include your concerns and suggestions. In addition, I would make more local single console multiplayer options, because only 2 games can be played on one console with 4 players, Blackjack and Ludo. Why can't 4 players bowl on one console? You could do it in Wii Sports in 2006. Why can't 4 players do the top-down golf on one console? Like, obviously, I get why you need to have 4 Switch consoles for, like, Reaching Mahjong and President and Sevens, all games that require you to have a hand that you can see. And like I said, there's the special Clubhouse Games Guest Pass app with 4 games and the ability to connect with a full game for these exact sort of hand-based games. I'd also be interested in seeing more Mosaic Mode games, because the Mosaic Mode options we have are pretty neat. I believe it's fishing, piano, slot cars, and God, there's one I'm missing. Which one is it? Slot cars, fishing, piano. battle tanks. I'm pretty sure no, team tanks, excuse me. I'm pretty confident it's team tanks. There might be one I'm missing, but I know for sure those ones. Um, why doesn't Dots and Boxes get an extended playing field in Mosaic mode? Or an even bigger sliding puzzle with two consoles? That could be neat. I mean, those are basic editions, but to be fair, the team used what they could out of Mosaic mode pretty well. I'm struggling to come up with any like extraneous features that I would get rid of. If I had to choose one, I would probably go with the guide globe feature. And I get why it's a feature, but it's the thing I've used the least in my experience. Um, I've looked at the guide globe a few times just for funsies, and I'm sure there are players who like comparing, like, here are other players around the world and the games they like and their favorite foods and whatever and their records, but, and it didn't really add a ton of the experience to me. I could take it or leave it and still be happy. So, but I would have to say I like Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics a lot, and I'm not ashamed to admit that it could be my game of the year. Uh, if I had to give it a numeric rating, I'm leaning toward like a 9 out of 10. I don't really like number ratings. I like those descriptive, like, I loved it. I thought it was great. I liked it a lot. I thought it was pretty neat sort of things. I mean, for $40, it's a neat little package, even with the multiplayer shortcomings that I mentioned, but it can still satisfy you for tens, maybe even hundreds of hours, especially with the online component. Even with the issues that the game has playing online with the lag, I've still found even months in, you can easily get into a game, and it's just fun. It's good, clean, wholesome, board gamey fun, and I couldn't ask for much more than that now, can I? So, we are halfway through this podcast. We have 2 more topics to go. Next up, let's get very summary and talk about some amusement park memories. Okay, so we have recently seen the summer, well, technically not according to the calendar, but we're seeing it come to a close. And so I thought it would be good to look back on some of the defining moments from my childhood summers. And like I said, when I first started thinking about it, I kind of struggled because I didn't really go to the beach, and I think that's what people think of with the summer, just like hanging out with friends out and not having school. But I wanted to go a little bit more out there. There was something that I did every few summers that I thought would be worth talking about, and that's going to some of the amusement parks back in my day. Now, I haven't seen a ton of commentary on this. Like I said, I thought it would be fun to talk about. And just to get it out of the way, I've never, ever been to Disneyland, Disney World, or either of the Universals, either in the studios in California or Orlando. I've been to Six Flags in Gurnee, Illinois, but that's about the only major amusement park I've been to. Whereas most of the ones that I've gone to are like smaller local attractions that I wanted to highlight to a larger audience. Needless to say, this is a good segment where I'm going to be talking about the 2 states that I lived in. This is also not a paid advertisement for either of these places, and though I should be linking to their promotional material, it's just so that there's a direct link to each location. So the first one that I want to talk about is the local amusement park that defined my earlier childhood years, which is Knoebels out in Ellisburg, Pennsylvania. So, it is an independently owned amusement park started about 100 years ago in 1926. It's obviously not the only amusement park out in Pennsylvania. There's also places like, I went to Dutch Wonderland a couple of times, and you can't, if you're talking about a Pennsylvania amusement park, you can't not talk about Hershey Park. I went there once, but when I think of childhood nostalgia connected to amusement parks, it's Knoebels that I think of. So it's the one that I want to give special emphasis to here, today. Now, there's actually a lot of extra amenities there that you're going to see on their website that I never participated in. Like, there's a campground. They have swimming pools with a couple of different slides. They're golf courses. But what I went for there during the between the ages of like 5 and 8 or 10 or so were the rides. I'll have a link available to the list of rides, but I want to go through some of the highlights. Some of the rides have little videos for you to look at on the site, and keep in mind, these are rides that I have nostalgia for, so it's possible that some of them aren't there anymore, or by the time you watch this, if you're watching this in post 2020, they might be gone when you're watching it. And I tried to pick rides that have pages on the website, hoping that they still exist, but it's always possible that something changes. So, how many do I have on here? I think I have 8 listed. Yeah, I have 8. So let's just go through the order. So the first one I have on here is the antique cars. So this is a ride where so it's like you drive in like a fake Model T, like 1930s looking car along a track. But I never really understood how it worked because there was like a bar in the middle of the pavement, but the car wasn't attached to it, but yet you would still somehow not really control it, and it would never hit the railings on the side of the road. I mean, regardless of that, it was just a fun little leisurely drive through the path. And you even got to drive in between one of the roller coasters in the park as well, so that was pretty neat. The second one I want to mention is the Flyer. So this is like a mixture of those like swings that go around in a circle, which I'll be talking about later, and those helicopter sort of rides. So basically, like, you get in a car and they're gonna go around in a circle, not unlike the helicopter rides. But unlike your normal plane or boat that has, a rudder that's behind you that you twist around, you have one, like a giant, almost like sail in front of you. And the easy thing to do would be, like, if you're going clockwise, would be turn it in such a way so that you're continuing to go and turn with the rotation. But you can just, like, twist it however you want and make the car go every single which way. This is one of the ones that should have a video on there to make it easier to envision, because I feel like this is a ride that's a little confusing, but if you actually go on it, it's pretty fun. They have a giant flume, also known lovingly by my family as just the log ride, and it's kind of like the logical end of what you would get if you mixed a water slide and a roller coaster. So most of the ride is actually spent just going around the path to the incline that you're going to go up. So a lot of the ride is really about anticipation, like, okay, we're going to go down this big drop, and it's going to be wet, and it's going to be cold, but it's going to be fun and scary. And then at the end, so, like, it's almost like a pair of escalators in a way. It's like you're going up and up and up and up and up and up, and then there's just a little itty bitty 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 curve, and then you go way down super fast, and all of your adrenaline rushes out during the fast drop, and you get this huge splash of water, and there's a splash zone if you're on the bottom, and it's pretty cool and scary, like any good roller coaster should be. The next one, and this is the definition of a childhood ride, because only kids under 4 feet tall can ride it, is the hand cars. So basically what you do is there's this little car, and you sit down in the car with your legs stretched out, and in the middle of the car is this like double-sided crank that you just have to twist and twist and twist and twist, and the faster that you rotate, the faster that the train goes down the track until you reach the bumpers at The end. And apparently, as I was doing my little bit of research on their website, I learned that these handcars are based on a design by Hodges Handcars from Indianapolis, Indiana in 1952. So those have made their way around the country now. I talked about the helicopters. This is a bit more of a generic ride where you get in a car and you're going around in a circle. But it's just a fun little sort of kid ride. Now, if I remember correctly, there's like a lever inside of it too that isn't too dissimilar from an actual helicopter, where it's like it lets you go up and it lets you go down. It lets you go up and down as you want. The sixth one on this list is the Italian trapeze. Is Knobel's special name for it, but I just always call this type of ride the spinning swings, which is probably my favorite type of ride in amusement parks, to be honest. It's a very simple ride, but whenever I get on one of these, I just get so like bubbly and like, you know, I'm like I'm like giggling like I'm just totally on top of the world, or on something that I'm not on. So I always have had this in my memory. I cannot remember which amusement park I've gone to that's had this, but there is one spinning swing ride that played carousel-like music, and I adored it. And I want to say it was the one at Knoebels, but I was looking up videos of people riding it, and I could not find it with the music. It was silent as people are going around. It has super pretty art on the side, not, just like a carousel, but I can't find the music, and that's really bugging me. It might have been a different one of the Pennsylvania ones, though. It was the Paradrop, which is probably the tamest of all of the rides I've mentioned. And basically the premise is that you and like a bunch of it's like those rides where you and a bunch of other people get in one big car, but in this case it's like you and there's like cars where you can fit a total of 2 people each, but they're paired up, so 4 people. And kind of like with the Flume, this ride is a lot about anticipation as well. Because basically you go up, 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 and then you actually sit at the top. I mean, not super long. It feels long. It's probably like 15 seconds. But then that's just enough time for anticipation where like the actual going, whoo, is kind of exhilarating. I mean, there's other rides like this that you'll see even at your state and county fairs. I'd say there's one that I like better even in the same park called, it's called the Ribbit, which is a similar idea, but instead of just like, you go up, it's like one of those ones where it's a bunch of people sitting in a line where you go up, but you actually go like up and down, like a frog hopping, hence the Ribbit. And the last one I want to mention from there are the Panther Cars, which is a special ride to me, if only because, and I see it right there where you can't see it, one of the times that I have ridden it is immortalized in a famous photo of my uncle and I in the light blue car driving around the bends. It's kind of like a faster version of the antique cars I talked about earlier, in even shorter track. But the biggest difference and the reason it may be superior is that you get a horn in this one, but it doesn't go like it's like a buzzer or something of the like. Now, trust me, that's not all of the rides at the amusement parks, because I'm sure you're sitting here right now and thinking like, Brandon, what are you doing not mentioning like the most famous amusement park rides of all time, the ones that you think of when you think of any generic carnival? That is for a specific reason, and that is because I'm going to talk about a second amusement park here, one that I visited more in my later years as I've been living in my current home state of Wisconsin, and that is the Bay Beach Amusement Park in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is a quite smaller park in comparison, and a big reason for that is because it's actually owned by the city, so it's like a park but also an amusement park, which is kind of neat. And it has mostly those standard rides. I'm only really going to talk about the few that I didn't cover that are important to amusement parks, the ones that you want me to talk about. Um, and there's also equivalent rides for those out in Knoebels, but so I'm going to discuss both locations for those. I don't have as many here. It's just 5 more. So the first one on this list is the bumper cars. It's tough to say which, I mean, of these classic rides is going to be the most classic, but I mean, part of me wants to say this one, part of me wants to say the Ferris wheel, and part of me wants to say the carousel because I'm indecisive. I feel like this might be the first ride that people today think of when they think of amusement parks. I mean, I feel like I don't have to explain the premise, but just in case, you get like 15 to 20 cars, and it looks like they have rubber tubes going around where the wheels would be if it had wheels. And then there's usually a pole on the back that goes up to a grate on the ceiling, and that actually powers the vehicle just enough so you can drive it around and bounce off of the other cars or like go around in a circle. I don't really have any special memories on bumper cars, but I have to mention it because it's a classic ride. Then there's the Ferris wheel, which for me, the Ferris wheel was always the ride that capped off every amusement park trip. So Bay Beach actually has 2 different Ferris wheels. There's the Ferris wheel, which is little, and then there's the big wheel. But I'm pretty sure Knoebels, I mean, they have their own Ferris wheel, obviously, but I'm pretty sure that theirs is the biggest of the 3. I haven't been able to try Bay Beach's and then Knoebels right after each other to compare, and I don't want to slander the size of the big wheel at Bay Beach, so I could be wrong, just full disclosure. But still, I have many memories of dark nights that were just barely lit aglow by the colors of the Ferris wheel, and I have to say, being up there with the lights and seeing the whole park out there it's a magical sight. If you've never had that opportunity before, I highly recommend it. The third one I want to mention is the giant slide. And the reason I want to mention this one is that there's actually a pretty big comparison between the Bay Beach version and the Knoebels version because the rides are very different at both. So Knoebels calls theirs the Sky Slide, and their version is not nearly as exciting because the Sky Slide is basically just like a corkscrew slide down by yourself on, that. I don't know exactly what the material is, but it's basically like a rug, but like super rough. Whereas the giant slide at Bay Beach holds like 8 people all at once, all on their own rugs, and they race down to the bottom of the slide at the same time, and it is awesome. And both are neat, but you just can't, especially like as somebody who loves gamifying things, you cannot beat turning this ride into a competition because it's really fun. Because that just makes it even more fun because you're with other people and trying to beat each other to the end. I have to talk about the carousel. And the thing about carousels is there are only good and okay carousels. It is very hard to have a bad carousel. But to me, the best ones have like the super pretty artwork in the middle, the horses or whatever animals you're on should look like they're actually carved by a human being. And of course, the music, if it's by like a calliope or an organ or an accordion, has to be super whimsical and magical to me. The carousel at Bay Beach is one of those okay ones. It has pretty lights. That's another thing it should have. And there's like a good set of animals, but the floorboards are all just like a generic boring color, and there's not really any art there. I mean, it has perfectly serviceable music, but the Knoebels one hits every note correctly and then some because it has flashy lights for at night. It's got the amazing, like, old-timey artwork in the middle, and it's both on the inner ring wall and then the roof ring. And the music is whimsical. Like there's little like figures that play it when you're in line. And not unlike the giant slide, the Knoebels carousel has a ring, has a little game added to it. Because if you're, so there's like 3 rings of horses. If you're on the outer ring and you like hear a bell ring as you're going around, you can try to grab a brass ring from like the holder and win free tickets if you can. There's like a spot you're supposed to toss it into that you time as you're going around. But if you're in the middle ring, then you get to go on horses that actually like move up and down as if they're galloping. So there's always fun, no matter how you ride that sort of thing. And to me, that's awesome. And total side tangent, I love carousel music, and I'm unashamed to admit that. I don't know. It just makes me like super giddy and gleeful, not to like the what? Oh my god, I was just talking about it. Like the spinning swings, and it's also probably a big reason why I want to play like the Clonoa series, because the opening songs are very carousel-like, and again, I'm unashamed, as much as I'm acting totally ashamed right now. And the last one I want to mention is every amusement park has to have a park train. And this is a type of ride that's near and dear to me, if only because I like being driven by a tiny locomotive, and when I was a little kid, I was super into trains. And Knoebels has 2 of these going around their park, but I actually want to talk about the Bay Beach one, because I think you actually get a much better scenic travel on it. You don't really go through the park, whereas the Knoebels one actually goes through the park, and again, kind of like the antique cars, it goes through one of the roller coasters. One of them does. I don't know about the other one. I say this as if I'm specifying which one does which. Whereas the Bay Beach one, you actually go more on the perimeter of the park, kind of by the bay, hence Bay Beach. And I'm just a sucker for shorelines, and that is, I don't know, it's just a pretty little 5-minute ride, and I think it's nice to, I think every, I didn't really mention any like roller coasters, like extreme rides, other than the flume in this. I don't know. I guess I'm just more of a calm ride person, as lame as that may make me. And those are just my current amusement park memories. It's certainly possible that when I can go to an amusement park again when it's safe, that I will probably revisit this topic in some way, like in the intro, and I'm like, hey, I did this cool thing, I want to talk about it because it's neat. But I think it was just kind of nice talking about this sort of thing. If only also, when I was doing research, to watch the videos about these rides. So we have one final topic here, and then the conclusion of this episode of the Creative Outlet Podcast to go. All right, last COP topic of the night. More retail snafus. So, like I mentioned in the last episode during the intro, I am among the many American retail workers because, yes, the service industry is the biggest industry in the United States right now. Trust me, it's going to be a great day when I can go into a full-blown career, but being 20 for the time being, I'm totally content in what I'm doing. Now, one thing that came up, kind of unintentionally, I guess, in that segment, was really talking about some of the snafus, that's a fun word, that employees and customers run into. And I just want to get a couple aspects of this topic out of the way before I get into it. Very few of the issues that I'm going to be talking about here are actually super big, terrible issues that they make a customer or an employee somebody who is quote unquote bad. But and at the same time, though, I want to come back to this central thesis, okay? Or at least this is a thesis that I feel like all of these issues that I find run into, which is going to the store, especially one that everybody needs to go to, even if it's somewhere that's just a big chain store, like your Walmarts, your Targets, or your grocery stores, whatever your local ones are in the area. Going to the store is a community effort, and in the end, I acknowledge that customers in a private business should expect to be served, but all I want to ask here when it comes to the things I'm talking about customers is that if they're just willing to pinch in just a little itty bitty bitty bit on a couple things, it's going to make their experience better for themselves and for everyone else. And it's going to make my job easier, which means I can give them a better experience. So I want to go through some of the general customer service roles and see where I have found some snafus popping up. So let's start simple. Let's say you're bagging somebody's items. One typical customer snafu I see is not paying attention to the person on the other end. And this can apply to any role, but it's especially true down on the end. Let's just say it's me, right? All I'm really asking for, which gets back to that thesis of I just need a little something to help, is that, let's say I'm at the end there and I'm just asking, hey, what do you want this thing in? Just a quick answer is all I'm asking for. Just acknowledge that I'm here and that I'm trying to help you get out of here quickly and do what you need to do, right? Or if you want, hey, when you want these things in certain places, I guess this is more a different sort of snafu where it's not being specific. Let's say somebody says, well, I want the cold stuff is a common thing in plastic, or I want it in paper. Okay, what of yours is the cold stuff? Does that mean just the things that go in the freezer? Does that include big bottles of juice? Does that include half gallons of milk? Does that include cheese? Does that include meat? Does that include... Some people put their fruits and vegetables in the fridge. What is the cold stuff? Does that mean your ketchup that after you open it has to go in the fridge? That will be a cold thing. It's just being specific in that sort of thing helps me out. Or if it also even helps to just literally physically help me out. Because, if you are a very specific desire, sometimes it's that old adage just holds true. If you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. And I mean, I hate to have people do that, and especially in times where let's say I'm, scanning all the items and I don't have someone on the end. I am incredibly appreciative of anybody who is willing to do that, because they don't have to. I can do it for them if they really want. Now, one sort of employee snafu usually in this spot is not helping the customer when they need it. So let me clarify. Usually this is when you have an older lady or an older gentleman or somebody who's riding one of those motorized carts. Just help them take their things out of there. It's not that hard, even if it takes some time away from you packing up your items, fellow employees. Speaking of carts, I also mentioned in that last episode that there's usually a kid that has to go outside. And I have to say, there are quite a few, often, unfortunately, customer snafus that come into carts, and it's shocking. So one snafu is leaving carts in what I like to call no man's land. So... yeah, I'm sure when you go shopping, you've seen how, usually there's a specific place inside where the carts are held, and then out in the parking lot, there's, 8 or so corrals of them. But then, as you're walking through, you might just see that 1 or 2 carts that are, off to the side of the store, or, they're by the reserved parking signs, and those are the carts that require the kid that's out there to make a whole extra trip because they're not grouped with the corrals. Which means it's more time that they're spending not getting the ones that are in the corrals, which means it takes them longer to have more available. And then another common cart issue I see is carts are almost always in the corrals, and this isn't entirely a snafu, I guess. Few of them are just left by the group that they're going to go in anyway by the entry. Okay, let me give a great example. There's usually a separate group of, those carts that have 2 little baskets on top of each other, and usually people take those if they're not buying a ton of items. Why do you need to bring that out into the corral if you probably got, 2 paper bags? Why not just leave it up in the front? That's one less trip that the kid has to make, right? I mean, and I'm not saying obviously that like somebody who is, like has weak arms for whatever reason shouldn't take it out there. There are plenty of reasons why, like justifiable reasons for some of these issues that I'm talking about here. But if you're an able-bodied individual who's only getting a few things, it doesn't take very long to just either A, bring the cart back if you have to take it out, or just leave it there and take your bags with you. Or if you're taking a full cart and maybe you only got a couple of bags, just pushing the cart back in with the big group in the entryway and pushing it all the way. That's very important too. Um, and even though there's a ton more issues out there, I want to save them for like a later time. Maybe I'll want to revisit this later when I'm out of the field, or more things that I see from the hey, I'm being served perspective. Now, when you're on the register, this isn't a spot that I find a lot of snafus in. I mean, if anything, I'd say probably the biggest one is an employee snafu, which is that I have found, and I mean, I can be guilty of this too, is cashiers tend to be too fast for that poor kid who has to be down on the end. Or that poor, older individual who has to be on the end. Because if your role is like just going sending items down, the least you can do is help put items in bags. And I don't care if that just means like, putting a couple things at the end, or like making sure if you got like a kid who doesn't pay that much attention that you put like the ant killer wrapped up in a special plastic bag before he puts it in with, the produce. It's just A, polite, and B, it helps out make things go a little bit smoother. One station that I think people don't think about a lot, and maybe this is just because it isn't as widespread as some would think it is the self-check station. Now, I'm not talking about those ones that are just like a register that you do by yourself. I'm talking about like when you have like a whole bunch of pods of them. And there tend to be quite a few little issues there that I like to summarize in the following saying. As the employee, I am happy to help you, but I know you're not helpless. So when I say that, I mean that oftentimes the issues that happen out on the self-check are just because the customers they don't know how to use the machine. And I can't really blame them because apparently they're different at every place you go. Like at certain ones, you have to hit a button to make a function happen. Like at certain ones, if you're paying with like a debit card, you have to hit the card button on like the bigger screen to make sure that the little, like the thing you put your card into and the computer all talk. But some do it automatically, and some you have to like hit a button to put in the cash, and some you can just put it in whenever you want. But at the same time, I know that the customer is an intelligent person who can listen to what the machine is saying, right? Like if it says, hey, you need to leave your bagged item on here until you scan the next one, since you're an intelligent person, if you just listen to that, there's going to be some fewer problems. Or similarly, I think about, no, I mean, obviously that's just like having some listening and a little bit of patience. And if people are patient and they listen and they still have problems, I'm willing to help out. But one thing that I do not appreciate is when people come through and they're expecting me to do the work for them. If you are going to the self-check station, I had this happen today, I went to work. If you're going to the self-check station, I don't care if you are 10, if you are 20, if you are 60 years old, 70 years old, if you're going to the self-check station, that means you are doing the work. And like I said, you're an intelligent person. That phrase, that similar adage of you can't teach an old dog new tricks is not true. You just have to try it, and it'll be fine. Now, the last major snafu I tend to see is one that I haven't neglected yet, or is one that I've neglected to mention because it's true about customers, employees, managers, and it happens no matter where you are. The most common snafu at the store is just being plain mean to other people. I mean, obviously it's flat unprofessional for an employee to be rude to their customer, but the same holds true in the other direction. I had a lady early last week who was talking to me, and she was like, "Why is this thing in the ad not the same thing that it says on the sign?" And I was like, "Oh, well, that's strange, because they're, as you can imagine, when you price things, or like when there's someone who like does and prints all the prices and makes the ads, they end up being the same thing." And she was like, "Well, no, it's not. That was the whole reason we stopped shopping here." And I want, if I could, I would have been like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. I did nothing wrong here. I did not make this happen. I'm willing to make things right for you, but that doesn't mean you have to be a jerk to me in the process." Because what's going to make me want to provide you a good experience if you want to be snide toward me, right? Again, I'm willing to help, and I'm going to be nice about it, because that is my job, and I just want to be nice in general. But it gets frustrating to be around somebody who's mean to you for no reason when you didn't do the thing to make them be mean, right? But at the same time, I can also definitely say that employees very, very often try to like rush through orders, or they don't give people their fair shake. And, I don't I don't personally think that employees have to act fake nice, or act fake nice, or like even use some of the tactics that like their bosses try to, like the corporate level people try to force on them, because that's some of the things they do are not the ways that normal people act. I just want to see my coworkers be happy and be helpful and be respectful, and because that's gonna get that given to them as well, and you're gonna get that symbiotic. Just, I'll help you out. I'm not asking a ton from you. I'm just asking a couple things, and I'm happy to, take most of the responsibility here as an employee of this private business. So those are just some of the snafus that I see. There's plenty that I neglected to mention that I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't think of them, or I wanted to save them for another time. So all that's left here to do here now simply is the conclusion. All right, so yeah, I mean that's our latest episode of the Creative Outlet Podcast. It's been about just shy of 2 hours, as lately I've been getting to do. As always, please do any typical sort of engagement things, depending on your platform. That could be a like, that could be a subscription, that could be leaving a comment, because feedback is always appreciated. I look forward to the next episode of this show. This is Brandon Pudwill signing out for the COP Creative Outlet Podcast on September 5th, 2020.